They told me not to go near the forest, not because of wolves, not because of bears, but because of the tree. They call it the Black Tree. No one knows how long it's been there. Some say before the town, before the first settlers, before God even looked this way. Red's Hollow is a forgotten place, one road in, no road out. Population, 62 on good days. The air always smells faintly of iron and rain, even when the sky is clear. When I first arrived, I thought the stories were just small-town superstition, a bedtime warning to keep children from wandering into the woods. But there's something about this place. The way shadows stretch too long at dusk. The way dogs bark at nothing. The way the forest line seems to breathe when no wind is blowing. I rented a room at a faded roadside motel. The owner, a hunched old woman named May, didn't look me in the eyes when she handed me the keys. She only said one thing. Whatever you do, son, don't go near the Black Tree. That night, the power went out. Through the thin curtains, I saw something move against the tree lean. Tall, narrow, wrong. A shape that swayed like a hanging man, but never touched the ground. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the dark, a trick of my tired eyes. But just before dawn, I heard it, a whisper, low, wet, close to my window. Do you remember me? When I looked outside, the grass was bent toward the woods, like it had all been pulled by invisible hands. And at the edge of the forest, I saw something glistening in the moonlight. A tree, black as oil, its bark slick and wet, as though it were breathing. I turned away, but in the reflection of the window, I swear I saw it move closer. And in that moment, I understood why everyone here keeps their lights on at night, why no one goes near the forest, why every door in Red's Hollow is carved with the same words, in trembling letters. Don't go near the Black Tree. Morning in Red's Hollow doesn't feel like morning. There's no warmth in the light, just a pale, dying glow that makes everything look old. Even the birds don't sing here. They just watch. I spent most of the day asking questions around town. People avoided eye contact. Some crossed the street when I approached. Others just muttered prayers under their breath. When I asked the priest, Father Gorman, about the Black Tree, he froze mid-sermon. His hands trembled as he whispered, "That tree doesn't grow in soil, son. It grows in sin." He refused to say more, but he gave me something, an old leather-bound journal. It was water-stained, its pages torn and brittle, filled with shaky handwriting. The first line read, "The roots are moving again." The entries were madness, stories of the ground shifting under homes, of whispers coming up through floorboards, of dreams filled with roots and teeth. One passage chilled me more than the rest. I saw them in the dark, crawling toward the church. They were looking for light. The ground was breathing again. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air felt too still, too heavy, like something was holding its breath. Then I heard it again, a faint dragging sound outside my window. Not footsteps, something slower. I peeked through the curtains. And there, in the dirt, were lines. Thin, branching lines, snaking toward my room, as if something beneath the ground was reaching for me. I followed the marks with a flashlight. They led all the way to the tree lean, to where the woods began, to where the Black Tree stood waiting. Its bark glistened like it was coated in oil. I swear I saw it pulse, once like a heartbeat, and from the darkness between its roots, I heard the sound, a soft, rhythmic whisper, like someone humming under the earth. I stepped back, flashlight shaking. The ground under my feet was warm. Then the humming stopped, and in the silence that followed, something spoke from the shadows. You shouldn't have read the book. The light flickered, and when it came back on, the roots were gone, but the marks they left behind, they spelled my name. The third morning in Red's Hollow began with sirens. Something this quiet shouldn't have sirens, but they wailed through the valley like something was dying. When I stepped outside my motel room, I saw people gathered near the church, faces pale, eyes hollow. May, the old woman from the motel, was clutching her rosary so hard her hands bled. A child was missing. Her name was Annabelle, 9 years old, brown hair, red jacket. Last seen playing near the edge of the woods. Her mother swore she heard her daughter laughing, then screaming. By noon, the sheriff had gathered a small search party. I followed, against every warning. The forest seemed alive that day, breathing in unison with our footsteps. Every tree groaned as if remembering something ancient. "Don't go near the black tree," one man muttered, his voice shaking. Another spat. "That's just old superstition." But no one looked up. No one wanted to see it. The deeper we went, the quieter it became, until even the wind refused to move. The air smelled of copper and damp soil. Then we found it, a small shoe, half buried near the roots, red, and inside it, teeth, not the child's. Human teeth, adult-sized, jammed in like seeds. The sheriff turned white. One of the men vomited. I just stared at the ground, where the soil pulsed faintly, like something underneath was breathing. Then the whispers began, faint, like voices caught in the wind, calling our names. One of the men, a farmer named Lee, wandered off the path. He said he heard his daughter's voice. We shouted for him, but he didn't turn back. He walked straight into the dark, into the space where the trees grew blacker. When we found him, hours later, he was standing motionless at the base of the black tree. His eyes were open. His mouth was full of dirt. He was smiling. The sheriff pulled him away, but when we touched him, his skin tore, like bark splitting from wood, and inside it was hollow. No blood, no bones, just soil, packed tight. We ran, all of us, because behind that tree I saw movement. Something was hanging there, dozens of things, shapes that swayed in the wind, almost human. And as I stumbled back into the clearing, I heard it again, a whisper that followed me all the way to town. You saw me now. That night no one spoke, no one slept, but when I looked out from my window, the woods were closer, and I swear I saw the black tree's branches moving, as if waving. The town changed after that day. You could feel it, like the air had thickened, like the ground itself was holding its breath. The morning after we found Annie's shoe, fog rolled in, thick, gray, suffocating. It didn't lift for 3 days, and with it came the smell. Rotting wood, wet earth, iron. At first, people thought it was a river. Then the dogs started howling. Every night at the same time, 2:13 a.m. Every single one, facing the woods, their eyes reflecting something we couldn't see. By the 4th night, even the wind sounded wrong. It didn't whistle through the trees anymore. It spoke, low, drawn out, like hundreds of voices whispering in unison. I began recording it. At first, just static, then faint syllables, over and over, until the words became clear. We remember the roots. The sound crawled under my skin. When I played it back, the whispers didn't stop, they just moved closer. The recorder hissed. Then, for half a second, I heard something else. A woman's voice, crying. I took the tape to Father Gorman. He looked at me like I brought him a corpse. He said the last time the tree called, it was 30 years ago, and it didn't stop until the ground opened. I asked what that meant. He wouldn't answer. He only said, every soul it takes, it keeps. Every name it whispers, it remembers. That night, I dreamed of the black tree. It stood taller than before. Its branches reached the sky, black veins against a red moon, and from those branches something hung, dozens of shapes, twisting the wind, whispering a language that scraped my mind raw. When I woke, the fog was gone. The smell lingered, and on the window, written in condensation, were 4 words. The wind knows you. I wiped it away, heart pounding, but the words came back. And from outside, in the faint rustle of the leaves, I swear I heard my own voice whispering, "We remember the roots." It had been 6 nights since the fog lifted, but the feeling never left. The town still felt watched, like eyes moved behind every window, and the woods were leaning closer with every passing hour. I couldn't stop thinking about the whispers, about that voice on the tape, the woman crying. So I went looking. The locals said there was a man who used to work the logging fields, the last one brave enough to go near the black tree. They called him the Hollow Man. I found him living on the outskirts, in a shack built from rotting wood and prayer. He was sitting by the door when I arrived, his skin gray, his eyes deep as sinkholes. He didn't ask my name. He just said, "It's awake again, isn't it?" I told him about the missing child, about the voices, about the roots scratching beneath my floorboards. He listened in silence, staring past me into the woods. Then he said something I'll never forget. "I buried my wife under that tree." He said it calmly, like a man confessing a sin he'd already made peace with. When she died, decades ago, the town wouldn't allow her to be buried in the churchyard, said she'd been touched by the roots. So he did it himself, at night, by the black tree. "She was all I had," he whispered, his eyes glassy. "I thought if I buried her close to the old gods, she'd rest." But she didn't rest. She listened. He showed me something from under his coat, a stone, black and pulsing faintly, shaped like a heart. It throbbed in his hand like it was alive. "It still beats when she speaks," he said. "She calls me every night. Same voice, same words." I asked what she said. He didn't answer right away. He just leaned forward until I could smell the damp earth on his breath. "She says she can see me, through the roots." The room grew colder. The candle between us flickered and went out. For a second, I thought I heard movement outside. Then a voice, faint but unmistakable. "You shouldn't have come here." The Hollow Man froze. His eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw something move under his skin. Tiny shapes, writhing beneath the flesh, like roots searching for light. He began to shake, whispering prayers that didn't sound human. And when I stepped back toward the door, he screamed, "It knows your name now." I ran into the night, the trees shifting in the dark like a sea of black veins. The moonlight caught something glistening on my sleeve, sap, thick red and warm. And when I wiped it away, I realized it wasn't sap. It was blood. They said the earth began to bleed that night. I saw it myself. The soil turned red, and the air carried a scent like rust and rot. No rain, no storm, just a deep sound beneath the ground. A pulse, steady and slow, like the heartbeat of something ancient. The Hollow Man was gone by morning. His shack was empty, walls split open as if something had grown out of them. Inside, I found trails of dark sap leading to the woods, and small pieces of skin hanging from the doorframe. Something had peeled them away. By nightfall, the town began to change. Windows warped. The ground moved like breathing flesh. And people started hearing whispers, not outside, but from under their feet. I remember standing in my room, watching the roots push through the floorboards, slow and deliberate, like veins searching for blood. They crept toward me, thin at first, then thicker, twisting, splitting into hands. When they touched me, I felt memory, voices of the dead, faces pressed against the inside of my skull, whispering in a language older than prayer. It was never a tree, one voice said. It was a door. The house groaned. The light died. And through the crack in the window, I saw the black tree moving. Its branches swayed though there was no wind. Beneath it, something huge was pushing from the earth, a shape with too many limbs and eyes that glowed like buried suns. The sound came again, that same deep pulse, and the world seemed to breathe with it. Then the screaming started, from every house, every street, every soul that dared to listen. The ground opened, and the roots began to drag them down. Not fast, slow, deliberate, like it wanted them to feel it. And above the chaos, I heard one voice, soft and clear, echoing from the woods. You shouldn't have come here. Then the pulse stopped, and the silence that followed was worse than death. The next morning there was no sun, only a sky the color of ash, moving, alive, shifting like smoke. Half the town was gone. The rest, they weren't themselves anymore. Their faces were blank, eyes open, mouths slightly parted, but empty, like dolls waiting for a puppeteer. They moved in silence, slow, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. When I called out to Mrs. Greeley, she turned her head too far, her neck cracking softly. Her voice came from somewhere deep inside her throat, like an echo trapped underground. It remembers us now, she said, and it wants us back. Then she smiled, a slow, splitting smile, and walked toward the woods, joining the others. There were dozens of them, all heading to the black tree, like pilgrims returning to a god that never wanted worship, only hunger. I followed, I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it, to understand what we'd woken. When I reached the clearing, the roots were everywhere. They moved like serpents, sliding beneath the soil. And in the center stood the tree, taller now, darker, its bark pulsing like veins under skin. The air trembled, and then I saw them, the faces, dozens of them, pressed into the bark. Men, women, children, their mouths moved in silence, their eyes dripping black sap like tears. Every root that moved beneath the ground carried whispers, memories, stolen from the ones it had taken. Their stories, their love, their pain, all stripped away to feed something that thrived on remembrance. I realized then, it didn't just consume bodies. It consumed who we were. One of the hollow turned toward me. It was the sheriff, but his eyes were gone and his voice sounded like dry leaves. The roots remember everything. He reached for me, his hand cold, his skin thin as paper. I ran. Behind me, I heard the ground cracking open again, and the tree let out a sound, not like wood breaking, but like laughter, deep, wet, and endless. Night fell, though the sun had never risen. The sky above the town was a single black wound, leaking faint red light, like blood seen through water. I hid in the schoolhouse, what was left of it. Every few minutes, I heard them outside, the hollowed ones, walking in circles, murmuring softly. But this time, their whispers weren't random. They were singing, not with words, but with sounds that shook the air. Low, trembling notes, rising and falling like a chant. The kind of sound that burrows into your bones and won't leave. I covered my ears, but it was inside me. It wasn't a song made for humans. It was a summoning. Through the cracks in the window, I could see the woods moving. The roots weren't still anymore. They were pulsing, swelling, dragging the ground inward. That's when I saw the firelight in the distance. A circle of survivors gathered around a pit. There were 5 of them left, or 6 if you counted the preacher. He stood above the pit, whispering scripture that didn't exist. Every verse ended with the same word, root. And every time he said it, the ground shook harder. When I got close enough, I saw what they were standing around. It wasn't a pit. It was an opening, a hole in the world, deep and black and alive. Something moved inside it, something enormous, breathing slow, like a heart trapped beneath the soil. The preacher spread his arms and screamed. The choir is ready. The roots are listening. And then the hallowed ones began to sing louder, that same unearthly chant, and the earth answered. Roots broke through the ground like spears. They pierced the preacher, the survivors, the air itself, and their voices fused into one, a sound so low and deep it felt like the world itself was being remembered backward. That's when I understood the black tree wasn't just feeding. It was building something, a voice, a mind, a god, made of everything it had ever devoured, and its first words were rising through the roots, through the soil, whispering into the air, and into me. Come closer. The ground began to open beneath my feet, and for the first time, I realized the song wasn't meant to summon it. It was meant to bring me home. The earth swallowed me whole. No scream left my throat, only dirt and darkness. I fell for what felt like hours, past veins of glowing sap, past roots thicker than towers, each pulsing like arteries. They carried faces inside them, stretched, half-formed, whispering my name. And then I stopped falling. I was standing in a chamber, vast, circular, and breathing. The walls were made of roots, twisting and weaving into the shape of skulls and hands. A dull red glow pulsed at the center. A heart, buried in the roots, beating slow and deep. When it spoke, it wasn't a voice. It was thought soundless, ancient, inside my bones. You remember the tree, it said, but the tree remembers you. I saw flashes, visions burned into my mind. The first settlers cutting through the forest, a black seed buried under their chapel. A man, centuries ago, kneeling beside it as it whispered promises of life eternal. It had been here long before the town, long before the soil. It was the soil, and now it was dying. The preacher's rituals, the hallowed ones, the songs, they weren't worship. They were medicine. The tree was feeding to stay alive, and it needed a new vessel. The roots lifted me, gently at first. They wrapped around my legs, my chest, my arms. I didn't fight. I was tired, so tired. You saw what they could not. It whispered. You listened. You stayed. You will remember me. It pressed a seed into my chest, not into my hands. Into me. I felt it burrow beneath my ribs, crawling toward my heart. The walls began to collapse inward, roots snapping, groaning like dying giants. The chamber was falling apart, but I didn't move. I understood now. It didn't want the town. It wanted someone to carry it beyond the woods, to plant it somewhere new. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the roots curling around me like a womb. And then silence. When I woke, it was morning. The forest was gone. Only ash and earth remained. But when I touched my chest, I could feel something moving beneath the skin, something growing. And when I looked to the horizon, I saw a single black sprout breaking through the ground. I don't remember leaving. I just remember walking until the whispers began again. Come closer.